Microsporidia. 2 weeks ago, you were at the water park for the summer holidays, but after splashing around for a while, your mind strangely begins to get a little foggy, and you're beginning to have trouble concentrating on anything around you. This might be because you've been exposed to a waterborne parasite called Microsporidia, which enters your intestines and immediately begins ravaging them to bits, leaving you feeling like you've taken a super quick weight loss pill, complete with all the side effects. You'll feel really nauseous, and your tummy will constantly feel like a washing machine, worrying around and causing you to take more trips to the bathroom than necessary. If left untreated, this microscopic menace will have you coughing more than a cat with a hairball, gasping for air like a fish out of water, and your sinuses will feel stuffier than your grandma's old couch. And for the grand finale, your vision goes haywire. Everything looks red, blurry, and painful, like you've been staring at the sun through a kaleidoscope. It's a real eye-opener in the worst way possible. This parasite majorly affects people whose immune systems have already been compromised, like those with HIV and AIDS, but the good news is that heavy-duty anti-parasitic medication can get you feeling like your old self again. Naegleria fowleri. So it was a really long day at the office, and you decided to head to the pool and get a few laps in. However, on your third stroke, some of the pool water mistakenly gets into your nostrils. Normally, this wouldn't worry you too much, but if Naegleria fowleri, a parasite which makes its home in warm bodies of water, unfortunately creeps up your nose as well, then you might have to enter into the Guinness World Records competition for the highest pain felt by an individual category. The first symptom will literally leave you feeling like someone just lit a matchstick in your brain, because the parasite basically attacks and feasts on your brain matter. This is because the parasite is a brain-eating amoeba that can cause a deadly brain infection that starts with you experiencing a sudden headache, fever, and stiff neck. It'll feel like the worst hangover ever, except this time it's not tequila, but a microscopic brain vampire causing your pain. A few days with this infection, you'll be feeling very disoriented, confused, and unable to move at all. Now, once it progresses to a stage called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, PAM, then you may probably want to start looking at burial flyers because the pain at this point would be unbearable. It's like your brain decided to go on a wild roller coaster ride set to turbo without your permission. The only thing you can do at this stage, aside from getting the best floral arrangement for your burial, would be brain surgery. Whipple's disease. If you're infected with Whipple's disease, then your brain and body may feel like you have a severe case of rejecting everything you eat syndrome. It's caused by eating infected food, so if you were considering using the water you weren't sure you boiled properly to cook your famous chicken casserole, you might just have to reconsider, because once you get Whipple's disease, no matter how hard you try, that would be the end of you eating anything edible successfully for a very long time. You'd either always be in the bathroom because now you've got a serious case of diarrhea, or your head would be in a bucket puking terribly because now you get extremely nauseous at random intervals. Your dress size is now 2 sizes smaller because you're losing weight faster than someone after a messy breakup. You'll also feel like there's a thick fog clouding your brain at all times, and as a result, you won't be able to think clearly, no matter how hard you try to concentrate. Whipple can affect other parts of the body too, like the heart, brain, and eyes. It's the overachiever of bacterial infections, always going above and beyond to cause you torment and torture. Trichoris trichura. You're visiting your family's country farmland, looking after the horses and other animals you haven't seen since you moved to the city, when suddenly you slip and fall face first into the dirt. You think you're fine, but you've mistakenly swallowed a mouthful of contaminated soil, and as a result, a parasite called Trichoris trichura has found its way into your body, its new home. Trichoris trichura, or whipworm, is like a heartless ringmaster with a painful whip, and its main target is your intestines, which it lashes mercilessly, causing every unpleasant digestive issues like diarrhea and a sudden wave of stress over your brain. You won't be able to sleep easily nor adequately anymore, and it'll also feel like your blood vessels decided to take an extended break because your skin will be as pale as that of a vampire who hasn't eaten in days. If you head to the hospital immediately, you might stand a chance to survive, because with anti-parasitic medication, supportive care like hydration, and proper nutrition, you would start feeling like your old self in a couple of weeks. But if not, well, then you can start getting ready to meet your maker. Dracunculus medinensis. Imagine drinking a glass of water because you were thirsty, and instead of feeling better, you begin to feel uncomfortable blisters beginning to form all over your skin. They're reddish and painful, and they're caused by a parasite called Dracunculus medinensis, or guinea worm, which causes skin and intestinal problems. After some time, they turn into disgusting looking lesions, and by now, you're very certain that your 6-step skincare routine isn't the solution to this problem. However, you won't even be able to remember anything because because the guinea worm is in full effect now, and your brain feels like it's been dipped in extremely spicy taco sauce, so you can't even think coherently enough. There is also a rumbling in your tummy that'll be accompanied by explosive diarrhea and vomiting. But hold up, it gets even worse. You'll also be extremely itchy, developing skin blisters and ulcers all over your body that would make people with a serious case of chickenpox look like they're having it easy. And by this time, the only treatment that can get you well would be the surgically removal of the worm from your body. You'll equally be given a ton of supportive care, like hydration and nutrition and analgesics for the pain in your tummy. Schistosoma japonicum. You've been on an expedition for over 2 months in a very small village with literally no clean water anywhere, and after a while of rationing the little water you have, you've run out. So one day you decide to say fuck it and have a tiny sip of the stagnant dirty water in front of your camp. Against your better judgments, you rule it off as pretty harmless since you're only going to sip a few drops. But if there's Schistosoma japonicum, a parasite that causes schistosomiasis lurking around, then you might just be out of luck. This parasite goes straight into your abdomen and liver, and would cause such pain and torment that it'll feel like your insides are constantly getting stomped on and ripped apart by an angry bull who's pissed off by all the color red inside your stomach. As your condition progresses, the parasite would relocate to your brain and start to lay eggs there too, causing destruction there. Soon you'll be unable to sleep, rest, or even close your eyes at all because it'll feel like your brain is working overtime. This would lead to problems like headaches, dizziness, and in severe cases, seizures. If left untreated, the infection can cause lasting brain damage over time, and that is definitely not an experience you'd want to have. Schistosoma mansoni. Schistosoma mansoni is a common parasite found in contaminated water. So if you decide to take a quick swim in contaminated water, the second you dip your head in and it feels like you're getting strangled, then you have unfortunately reached Schistosoma mansoni infested territory. This parasite immediately has you gasping for air, leaving you panting, writhing, and breathless. And because the restriction is so sudden, it would confine you to a box of pain so nerve-wracking that if there was a competition between you and a worm sprinkled with salt, you'd easily be winning the gold medal after displaying all your moves. You'd also be a victim of intense painful diarrhea that's mixed with blood and mucus. And as if that's not enough, it'll also feel like your head is constantly being banged on because you wouldn't be able to concentrate on anything. Even closing your eyes and falling asleep is as difficult as being asked to defuse a bomb with one hand. The entire ordeal would leave your throat, head, and butthole in a world of pain and discomfort, and the only way to get rid of the disgusting work is by taking heavy-duty antiparasitic medication. It might take a while, but you would definitely start to feel better. Ascaris lumbricoides. Imagine living in a more rural area where there's more likely to be houses built around the riverside. You'll find it a little harder to be at the top of your hygiene game, and you could be exposed to a parasite known as Ascaris lumbricoides, also known as a roundworm that lives in contaminated soil and water. If you're infected with Ascaris lumbricoides, then you're subject to a host of abdominal pain and respiratory issues, and you always feel exhausted because of how much effort it takes to breathe. At some point, you can even end up sounding like an accordion after all that labored breathing. Now, living in these conditions makes it nearly impossible to stay healthy, because even the food you need to eat has to be prepared in such an environment. It's like playing a losing game from the start. The first thing you would need to do in this situation is extract yourself from this environment and find your way to the nearest hospital. But if it doesn't seem likely, you should always wash your hands regularly and avoid contaminated soil and water as much as you can. Paragonimus westermanni. It's been 2 weeks since you took yourself out on a solo date at a newly opened restaurant down the street, and you decided to have their seafood special. Unfortunately, their chefs weren't exactly Michelin star standard yet, and you found that out the hard way by contacting lung flu, also known as Paragonimus westermanni, from the undercooked crab you were served. This infection leads to paragonomyosis, which permanently destroys your lungs and leaves you gasping for breath every few seconds. You can't sleep at all because it feels like a ton of bricks has been dropped carelessly just below your neck, and you've also begun to have more respiratory problems like an endless cough and chest pain so bad your entire ribcage feels like it's being chipped away with a blunt chisel. Now, this wasn't the way you planned on getting chiseled abs, especially because it's happening in an entirely wrong location, your chest instead of your torso. You would need to receive medical attention as your first step to getting over this disease, but now you're certain that your independent woman days are over. Tinea solium. You're in China for your final vacation as a college student before you finally decide what you want to make of your life. But you know you can't leave without having some of their famous pork meat. What you might not realize is that if you're not completely certain your food is prepared in a hygienic location, then you just might be having some famous Taenia solium instead. Now, this parasite is found in contaminated pork and wild game meat, usually from the water used to clean it, and it causes serious digestive problems that would make you visit the toilet so much you might lose enough weight to be considered a Victoria's Secret supermodel. If left untreated, you would continue to have uncomfortable bouts of diarrhea, so you might need to head right over to the hospital where you'd most likely be treated with antiparasitic medication. After a few weeks, you might begin to see some improvement in your health, but next time you're feeling adventurous, you might want to try it in a country where food is not used as a Bluetooth connection to catch the latest disease. Diphyllobothrium laudum. If you're traveling to a riverside location, then you would expect to eat a lot of seafood as a big part of your diet. You'd have to be careful though, especially with the freshwater fish, because that's where Diphyllobothrium laudum exists. If you don't cook your meals properly, you just might get infected. If you get infected with this parasite, then you can kiss your good health and perfect skin goodbye, because you will immediately begin to suffer from abdominal pain, digestive problems, and vitamin B12 deficiencies. Looking in the mirror would become an eyesore rather than one of your most anticipated daily activities, because you would begin to lose so much weight that someone who just glances at you would be able to tell where all your bones connect. It also affects your brain, causing random headaches and confusion, sometimes even memory loss. Even though it can be cured by taking antiparasitic medications like praziquantel, it would be better to nip things in the bud by endeavoring to cook your seafood properly at all times. Or you can just go to a more Sahara-related location if you're not confident in your seafood boiling skills. Enterobius vermicularis. It's a regular day in your rural community at a riverbank. Your tasks for the day include doing the entire family's laundry at the riverside, collecting water for the entire family's baths at the riverside, and fetching water for cooking the family's entire meals at, you guessed it, the riverside. It's not like you have a lot of options, but unfortunately there are many downsides to performing every form of your daily activity at a still bank of water, one of them being standing the chance of contacting Enterobius vermicularis, aka pinworms, a parasite that literally has a weird thing for your buttocks. The start symptom of this parasitic pajama party is an itch so intense it'll feel like someone replaced your underwear with poison ivy. This itch hits its peak at night because that's when the female pinworms decide it's time for their grand party. So they would literally crawl out of your butt and start to lay eggs around your anus. Your nether regions might start to look like a connect the dots puzzle gone wrong, with red rashes appearing everywhere, because that's where your new friends have been moonwalking all over. You might also find yourself making more trips to the bathroom than usual because of the constant grumbling and gurgling in your stomach. In the most severe cases, you might even spot these little party crashers on your stool. Pinworms are highly contagious, so if you start scratching your rear end like a dog with fleas, don't be surprised if your whole family joins in on the symphony of scratching. It's like a very itchy game of tag where everyone's it. This parasite was definitely nature's weird way of reminding us that sometimes life's a real pain in the ass. Literally.